Welcome to Lead Different, the podcast that redefines leadership and challenges the status quo. Hosted by Danielle Dominguez, founder and CEO of Why Not Leadership. This show is your compass to becoming a better leader through the power of self-awareness. Good leaders foster teams that are engaged, empowered, and energized. Join us on this transformative journey as we equip you with the tools and insights to lead different. Get ready to challenge the ordinary and embrace self-aware leadership. This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different, because great leaders change the world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lead Different podcast. I have an amazing guest for you this week, Danielle Dobson, who comes to us all the way from Australia. She is a well-respected professional in leadership development, known for her transformative approach that empowers leaders to break down barriers and achieve peak performance. As the leadership codebreaker, status quo shaker, and performance innovator, Danielle helps top executives and teams optimize their strengths and drive meaningful change in their organizations. With a background in decoding the intricacies of leadership dynamics, Danielle brings a wealth of experience and insight to the table. She has worked with leaders across various industries, helping them navigate identity shifts and adapt to the ever-changing business landscape. Her methods focus on exposing, decoding, and recoding personal and professional codes to build a culture of high performance and innovation. So without further ado, let me welcome Danielle Dobson. How are you, Danielle?
Hi, Dan. Thanks for that lovely introduction. I'm great. Thanks.
Thank you for being here, Danielle. We've been looking forward to having you on the show, and because you are in Australia, it's kind of hard to get our schedules to work out. So I'm glad we were finally able to get this done. And that was a fun introduction to read. I really like the way we talk about you as a leadership codebreaker, status quo shaker, and performance innovator. And that probably has a little bit to do with your YOS, right?
Mm-hmm. It has a lot to do with my YOS.
Yeah. And you're an author too. You've written some books. So, hey, as for those people that don't know you, what's something we need to know about Danielle Dobson that I didn't read in the introduction?
I also spent time working on a steel mill in Italy. That's part of my history, because I was professionally raised in the world of finance. So I worked all over the world and as a CPA, and that's where it took me. So for 6 months, I was there covered in slag dust, driving around in a Fiat Panda, living the life.
Living the life. Well, we're going to get into a lot of that stuff. How I know that we had some time scheduled, and we had to move it because your son recently got an award, and I know your kids are an important part of your life. So he made the honor roll, or that's what we call it in the U.S. What do you call it in Australia?
It's a similar thing. I guess we don't have an actual name, but I know through American culture, watching so many TV shows and movies, that's what it's called. Yeah, he got straight A's. So, and yeah, academic excellence and things like that. So
academic excellence. And how old is he?
15.
So, and straight A's are easy in elementary, but as they get into high school, especially at 15, when they're teenagers, it takes a little bit more discipline because there's a lot more distractions at that age. So kudos to you. For the parents that are listening, what's the secret to having a 15-year-old that wants to get straight A's and then not only wants it, but also gets it done?
When his 13-year-old brother in his first year of high school gets straight A's. It's a good motivator. So I've got 3 boys. So one in his senior year, one that sophomore year, the 15-year-old, and then I guess junior high, year 8. So that was a pretty good motivator.
Yeah, it's interesting, that family dynamics. We're going to dig into some of that, because one of the things I like to do with our coaches is have you talk about what you do, how you do it, why you do it. And we'll talk about your why, your how, and what, but we also want to know where all that comes from. And so I know that we've got some great background info on you. And, I've just enjoyed working with you, Danielle, in my role as the Chief Growth Officer at the Y Institute. I got to meet you as you were a new coach coming on board. And now, as we're both in this coaching realm, just sharing some of our success stories and working with you on at a different level has been a lot of fun. For those of you who don't know Danielle, she's an author too. So your book is called Code Conversions, right?
Breaking the Gender Code.
Oh, Breaking the Gender Code. So
Yeah.
there we go. Code Conversions, your company. So tell us about breaking the gender code, because we're going to talk a lot about code today. So what can the world learn from reading Breaking the Gender Code?
Great question. So I started out in terms of trying to find an answer to a question, and that was why women struggle so much with feeling like that they're good enough, so that they're winning at work, winning at home. But at the same time, they're suffering with all of this tension, like feeling like a failure. So I was like, okay, what's behind this? So I looked at neuroscience, social research, interviews and conversations with over 100 high-performing leaders across a range of industries and professions. And I made this mind-blowing discovery. I found that we're all operating under this code, the gender code. And it's a set of default beliefs that create stereotypes, which keep the genders firmly in different boxes. And it's like this societal algorithm. It's deeply embedded into our culture, and we don't often question it. And so we have this situation where we have people in the pink and blue boxes, and there's a program, that training program, expectations, rules, and we're punished or rewarded based on how well we conform. So that took me on an incredible journey. And as I, learnt this information, I thought, right, I've got to share it. There's some incredible ways forward that these leaders that I was speaking to, plus all this extra research, ways to navigate through it. So I wanted to share it. And that was the catalyst for that, was actually a conversation with my middle son when he was 10 years old. So he's now 15. But understanding this, so Leo revealed to me during that conversation, he said that, there is a way to, change this, mum, because it's similar to what I was doing with coding. Before I knew how to code, I'd be really confused, but now I can understand it, and I can make a choice. So I can choose what I want to keep, delete, and create. And he said, you know what, Mum, the best bit is not all code's been created yet. So you can try new things that haven't been created and create it. So that conversation just blew me away, because he showed me that, it's not just about the gender code. It's about all of these codes in all of us. And the thing that they all have in common is that we can expose, decode, and recode. So that then opened up the door to look at all of these other codes too. So we've got the gender code, the cultural code, the family code, the race code, the ability code, the postcode code, zip code. There's all of these codes, and every single one of them, on leadership, obviously, and every single one of them have a training program, a set of rules and expectations, and we're punished or rewarded based on how well we conform. So that opened up the doors, Dan, to a whole lot of different opportunities to share that message.
Man, and all that, and I love that all came from one conversation with your son. Now, is this the oldest?
No, he's the middle one. He's the one on the honor roll. Yes,
he's the one on the honor roll. So now we're going to have to make sure we give equal airtime to the older one and the baby one, right? Because we don't want them to listen to this interview and have a sibling rivalry. But it's really interesting. There's so much you talked about there. You talk about beliefs, that pink and blue box leading to stereotypes. And that's what leads us to put, hey, I'm going to put Danielle in the pink box and I'm going to put Daniel in the blue box. Even though they have the same name, we're going to put them in their box based on that. But that leads to behaviors, right? And I love the thought that you mentioned about understanding your code and then decoding it, right? That's understanding it, and then recoding with something new if necessary. But what was you've obviously figured it out. Has your work in code conversions and understanding your codes helped you be such a great parent while at the same time running a very successful coaching organization? So obviously there are some things you've learned that you're doing well. What are some of those things that you use every day from your learnings, from your code work?
Wow, that is an amazing question, Dan, and thanks for asking. I've never been asked that, such a insightful question. Because this is actually exactly how I operate. So with this, I know in my heart at the core of me what's most important to me. And sometimes there isn't actually a word for it, but I know, and I've tried to peel back the layers and peel back the layers. So my family's always been important since I started having children. So I know that that's always been important. So I thought, oh, maybe it's family. And then I peel back and, some more layers and some more layers, been in this coaching game for, a decade and a half now. So, and had some really great opportunities working with amazing coaches. I always have a coach that's better than me. So been peeling back the layers, and really at the heart of everything, I thought also it was health and well-being, because, exercise, eating well, looking at the latest, ways to be healthy, that's always lifelong, been important to me. And then I keep peeling back the layers, and actually what's at the heart of it is growth. So when I feel as though I'm growing in some way, then I'm feeling fulfilled. So that is like my internal compass. But the step back from that, the way that I am, I live and breathe what I preach and teach. Let's put it that way. And anyone who knows me will know that the way I'm speaking to you here now is exactly the way I'd speak to someone, barista at a cafe, or someone on the sidelines at soccer. I'm pretty congruent. And we talk a lot about authenticity, but congruency is really important to me. So when you have that solid connection to what's most important and that connection to that internal compass, then decision making becomes a lot easier, because it's not a sacrifice, it's a choice. So I apply that to my relationships with my children. I apply it to my professional relationships, anyone I meet, community relationships, anyone. So it's that congruency. And so the incredible thing, it's been such a gift. I have learned so much from the people that I've interviewed and worked with as clients and worked with in business in terms of leadership. But part of my focus when I was doing the research and asking questions and interviewing people, I chose people who seem to be doing well in their personal lives and professional lives. So I dug deep into understanding what's working well across both. What are the things that they're bringing to their leadership as a result of being a parent or a carer? And what are the things that being a parent or a carer are they bringing to leadership? So all these incredible lessons that I learned from these people that I was interviewing and researching, I actually experimented with it with my own sons. So I've been able to integrate and be congruent in all areas of my life. So I don't exclude my sons from my work, I bring them in. And that evidence of that is that conversation with Leo.
That is amazing. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take that phrase. You live and breathe what you teach and preach. That is something all of us could use a little bit more of. And I like how you explained how that makes it easier. And not only that, those are the people you want to work with. And then you find those things that work in all the places, because those are the codes I would imagine that work best for all of us, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I guess this is where the why comes in too, like knowing who and who you want to work with. And here's the thing: when people know what's most important to them in terms of working with them, and if I'm helping them to discover that, then they're more grounded, they're more confident in their decisions. They still have self-doubt. Like we still all have that when we go into a new arena, when we start something new, a new environment, we're building a new skill. That is totally okay. But when people have that sense of connection to what's most important to them, and they're congruent and they live and breathe what they preach and teach, they're not putting any energy into masking. They're not putting any energy into impression management. I learned that from Rosie at the YCon last year.
Yeah.
So So I actually look at it very practically as an energy management system as well.
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about that in the work that I do with the why. So, and you and I are always talking about why. So let's let our listeners off the hook and let them know Danielle's YOS. You guys can probably imagine, based on what she said so far, that inquisitiveness and making sense of things. So her why is to make sense of things. Her how is to find a better way, and her what is to challenge the status quo. And as I've listened to these stories, that just halfway through the interview here, I'm already seeing how you are driven by solving problems, right? Finding the codes, figuring out whose code is whose, and then you figured out multiple different codes, family codes, work codes, all the different places you can use those, and then finding a better way to operate using that information. And the YOS obviously was a better way to get to know your clients. For you, you found a way that you can really get to their drivers, their why, their how, and what. And then your what is to challenge the status quo, to do it different than everybody else, what you deliver. So what we know about Danielle, and coaches, I know you know how to do this, but for those that aren't familiar, what we're talking about in terms of Danielle is her why is to make sense of the complex and challenging. So you love solving problems. How you do that is by finding better ways to do things and sharing them with your clients. And so that in order to help them make sense of their complex and challenging problems, and then ultimately what you deliver, what they can expect from you are solutions that are out of the box and different. And it's amazing to hear you tell those stories and just to see those elements in almost everything that you do. This is one of the questions I often ask, and it's just as a matter of course, but this is really powerful at this point. I'd like to ask, what was it like for you when you discovered your why operating system? How did it feel, especially now that we're seeing this congruence a couple of years later?
I can't tell you, Dan. I'll always remember, and I'm smiling inside now when you first revealed it to me when we had the debrief. I think the first thing was relief. Actually, it's like, oh, okay. That's like, because often I have felt like a bit of an outlier in certain situations and environments, because the make sense part of me is like, I make all these connections and I see solutions that kind of jump out at me. And then I'm all about continuous improvement, finding a better way. I love to share it. Any kind of new process or insight or a better way of doing something, I love to share. And then challenging the status quo, well, that has been me all my life. So I just felt such relief. And then this additional level of self-acceptance. So that's how I felt. So this is why I love this tool, and I'd love to offer that to more people.
Yeah, and you've done a great job. You're our second coach in Australia. You're the most active for sure. And I love that you talk about that. And I hear that from a lot of people, that relief at, hey, this is something other people are going through. There are other people that have this why, that are driven by doing this. And you're absolutely right. You and I share both make sense and challenge. So we're both problem solvers, and we're both out of the box thinkers. And boy, when you do that, when you combine out of the box thinking and making sense of things, we can be a little hard to get along with sometimes, right? Because we're going to challenge things, and we're going to challenge things that we understand, because we understand things faster than most people. And then we're probably impatient with others who aren't coming along as fast as they should. And number one, we're presenting them with something that's different and out of the box. So they need time to process it, especially if they're right way or if they're clarifiers. They need more information or mastery. So those people need more information. And we're like, hey, why don't you get it? Right. So we have to learn to live within those limitations that we have. But you're absolutely right. The other thing I hear from challenge people all the time is it gives you words to express who you are. Which you may or may not have had before. What was that experience like for you in terms of expressing yourself? How comfortable are you today expressing the fact that you're a problem solver who likes to find better ways to do things and delivers solutions that are out of the box?
I love it. I fully own it and step into it, and have the words now. Because I don't have simplify or right way. That right way is actually my last, or even simplify. I don't think it's or clarify. I have all of these ideas and I have words and I have senses of things and I feel things and I make connections, but I don't always have a great way to put that in a form that others can understand. So now having this awareness that, okay, that's all right, but you know what, Danielle, everyone's not like that. And I used to call it, why isn't everyone getting on my Danielle fast train with me? It's kind of how so now it's like, okay, you can take a breath. You've had, and you can, and actually self-compassion too. This has been a major revelation because, compassion. So self-compassion for myself. Okay, Danielle, you are a make sense, better way challenge person. You've done the thinking here. You've done the work. You've built, a lifetime operating this way. So great, some self-compassion, compassion for others. Okay, Danielle, not everyone's the same. So, they need more clarification. They want to do it the right way. They need to build trust.
Yeah.
So compassion for self, compassion for others in a way that I can put it in words that make sense. Makes sense.
Well, I love that you said that because when I look at your mission and your passion, you're deeply passionate about transforming how individuals and leaders connect with themselves, which you just talked about, each other, which is our families and the people we work with, and the world around them. And so you're so dedicated to promoting women's health and building healthy families and recognizing the fact that well-being in these areas significantly impact your overall fulfillment and success. So I can see so much of your YOS in the work that you do and the way you've built your mission and your vision and your passion. So it's really cool to hear you talk about it this way. So I knew this was going to be a powerful interview. And I will tell you, live and breathe what I teach and preach. I just absolutely love that because that congruency is so important for all of us as coaches, as leaders in organizations, as people who are trying to make a difference in the lives of others using our specific gifts. And so I really, truly appreciate that. Danielle, where does it come from? When can you look back and which of your whys do you remember seeing as let's imagine little Danielle on the playground, or where did you notice the make sense, the challenge, or the better way in yourself?
I think now looking back, it's definitely, here's the thing. I think when I was really young, I was more challenged. And then as I got older and, all the layers start piling on, and I was the eldest girl of three. I've got two younger brothers, and there's more expectations and pressure and that sort of thing. So then I probably stepped more into make sense and better way, like always about continuous improvement. Like we were latchkey kids, mum's at work in the 80s. So I'd always make sure when I got home, the house was spotless. I'd have dinner on, chop the wood, got the fire going, tried to negotiate with my brothers to get them to help, but they'd just gang up. But for me, I wanted to help my mum because she looked like she was struggling. So, every day I'd be like, okay, I'm going to do this better and quicker. And actually, yeah, that was a pattern for my life. But if I look back now on certain events, there's, a couple of things that stand out and they speak to the work that I do now. So when I was younger, I'm not sure if all your listeners know about AFL football, Australian Football League. So Aussie rules. Our family was big into that. My dad was the secretary of the club. And so all day on Sundays, we would spend at football and there'd be a lot of jobs to do. So myself and my friend, who also had brothers who played, we contributed, we did everything. We did the gate takings, we did the canteen, I'm not sure what the equivalent is in the States, but where you get all the food. We did...
That would be the snack bar. We call it the snack bar. Yes.
Yeah, snack bar. Did the snack bar. We sold raffle tickets going car to car. We did the timing of it, blowing the, whistles and everything. We did everything to support all of the boys playing football from 9 through to 15 years of age. And my friend had 4 brothers. She was one of 8. And I said to her one time, I said, Camille, we're sitting on the sidelines here doing all the jobs so that everyone else can play. We can both play football. Why aren't we out there? And she said, I'm not getting out there. I said, I am. So I went and spoke to my dad, who's the secretary, and he spoke to the under 11s coach. And my brother was in that team. And they said, yeah. And because girls tend to grow more quickly than boys at that age, I was the tallest in the team. So I had that position at the start where you start the game. So you run up and then you hit the ball. So I was the tallest. And I'll never forget that first centre bounce. And opposite, the opposition player, we're in the middle and the siren's about to sound and the umpire's about to start the game, referee. And he looks at his mate and he said, oh, check out this girl. There's no way she's going to get the ball. And there was something that just, I don't know, was triggered in me, something that fired right up. And I said, I don't care what it takes. I'm going to get this ball and I'm going to tap it to my player. And I did. So that, I guess, is a really good example of making sense. Like, come on, Camille, this doesn't make sense.
Right.
We can get out there, finding a better way. There's a better way to do this. Not, we don't have to sit on the sidelines and challenge the status quo. I was the only girl in the whole entire association, not only my club, but all the clubs.
We're all going to get a kick out of that story because that is such a challenge thing to do. Why not? Right? Your friend's like, I'm not getting out there. And you're like, why not get out there? Why not go play with the boys? How long did you play?
I asked my dad how many games he needed to play to get a participation award. So I played one season. So to get that trophy, I've still got that trophy to prove that I played for under 11s AFL football. The Seville Blues, they were called.
I love it. Love it. Tell me about the school. I got to hear the school uniform story.
Well, I lived in a rural place. So it's called the Yarra Valley in Victoria, in Australia. And our bus stop, we had to walk to the bus stop probably about 15 minutes. And so wintertime can get, okay, so I'm going to use US. So below 0 in Celsius. So I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, but it's pretty cold. So we had to walk to the bus stop every morning. I went to a Catholic primary school, and our uniform for girls was dresses. And anyway, I said to my mum one day, I said, why do this was when I was in 3rd grade. I said to my mum, she tells the story, I said, Mum, why are the girls wearing dresses? It is so cold on that bus stop early in the morning. And you know what? I can't kick the footy at lunchtime, because I've got a dress on. And then the boys get to wear pants. It just doesn't seem right. Can we do anything about it? And she said, oh, I don't know. I think that's just the uniform. So I went and asked at school that day. I went to the principal's office and asked someone in the office and just started the ball rolling. And my mum, God bless her, she's the eldest of a family of 8 children. She's got 6 brothers. So she's got a lot of experience with boys and men. And she believes in fairness as well. So she helped me and we got the uniform changed. So girls then had an option to be able to wear long pants or dresses. So it was like, it didn't make sense to me that we would be cold and I couldn't kick the football. I wanted to find a better way to be able to do that, be warmer and make sure that everyone had the option. And I challenged the status quo.
What's really cool about that story, what I really like about it, Danielle, is a lot of times, especially, and you probably run into this as a coach, people want the why of contribute somewhere in their top 3 because they want to feel like, hey, I do want to make a difference. But as I hear you tell your story, you contributed by making sense, by solving a problem, by finding a better way, and by challenging. So I always tell people, look, you are contributing. You're just not doing it directly. People like myself with the why of contribute, look, we're trying to help all the time. And what you're doing, and I think that's a great example of it. Look, you made the world a better place for a bunch of girls at your school who now no longer had to freeze wearing a skirt when everybody else was wearing pants. They could play football. So you solved the problem. You started with that, found a better way to do it, and then you were able to get the support. That's the other thing that I've noticed. People with the why of makes sense, they're really good at getting other people to agree with them once you conquer that power of solving problems, because you're really good at solving the problem. And then when you can communicate it really well and understand, then other people understand the solution that you came up with, it works out really well, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And that's such an excellent point that you bring up, influence. And I don't know if it's just something that I've learned or if it's something that I was born with, because I say we're nature, nurture, and neuroplasticity. You know, I don't know what it is, but I've always had this ability to be able to understand what other people want to hear. And it's been, you know, a blessing and a curse. But so for job interviews, for, you know, general conversations, to get things across the line, it's this power of perspective. And I don't know, when it first came up, but I remember reading the book To Kill a Mockingbird. I'm not sure if you've read the book or seen the movie. And Atticus Finch says that to Jem and Scout. He says that you really don't understand a man until you get inside and walk around in his shoes. Sorry, I'm butchering the quote, but it's something like that. And so I took that when I read that in high school very seriously. Plus, I read How to Win Friends and Influence People when I was a teenager. I was a bit of a nerd, always about self-development. But I get that from my dad. But so really starting there, understanding, and I look at that as a problem to solve too. Understanding what's everyone seeing out. Oh, like what's the world that they're seeing? And so I apply that all the time. And my most consistent application of that is with my 3 boys, understanding their operating system, not just their strengths or skills or whatever, but who they really are. And that's what happens when you birth a child or you're with them from the time they're born. You see their essence and who they are from the start, the core of who they are, and then the layers come on top. So I think, looking at understanding the perspective, connecting with that and the human in there, there, and then working from there.
I love what you said. I think the quote you might have been looking for was, "Don't judge a man until you cannot judge a man until you walked a mile in his shoes."
Yeah,
right. And I like what Jerry Lujan, one of our YOS leaders, talks about. He says, you can't sell what John Smith buys until you look through John Smith's eyes.
Love it.
So, again, and that's such a premise that you talk about. Why is it important to understand someone else's perspective in their YOS? You talk about that being important to healthy connections, effective communications, and conflict resolution. How do you do that as a coach? How do you help people do that?
In terms of a motivator, like, why should they bother, sort of thing? Like,
tell me how. How does understanding another person's perspective and their YOS lead to healthy connections and effective communications and conflict resolution?
I mean, it's just so essential, because maybe this is something I guess also that just makes complete sense to me. But when you sit in and look at something through someone else's eyes, and not everyone can do this. Like, some people will do it because they're empathetic. Some people will do it because they're problem solvers. Some people will do it because they want to find a better way. So I guess understanding, that person's operating system and the what's in it for me. So I find, like with why, the why and everything we do, we've got to have that really strong motivator. Like, start with why. We always say that. And that's kind of something I've always practiced with my kids too, really finding someone's currency. Now, as I mentioned, I've done a lot of work in diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging, and gender equality. So that's a tough space to be in, because it's triggering. Not everyone sees the benefits. So I've cut my teeth in that space for many years now. And the key that I find there is to get people to events, to get people to open up, is to really help them connect with what's in it for me. So some people in the room, it might be to be a 1% employer. For other people, it might be to be, a market leader. Knowing what's in it for me is starting with that. And that's the thing I find with coaching, with facilitation, with everything. really digging into, what is that? We know our why, like amount of, like, contribute makes sense. But really, what is that thing, that unifying objective or unifying goal that is needed to really then be able to help them take those steps to connect, to effectively communicate? That's got to be so strong, or else it's just not going to happen.
You know what? You just reminded me of a question. I need to ask you this question because I look at, I led sales teams for a long time, and I was also a military leader. And one of the strengths that I think I had that helped me really connect well with the people under my command in the military or in my charge when I was a business leader, was connecting with people at a deeper level. But what I found is that it took a long time. It takes time to meet Danielle, interview her for a job, get to know her. She starts the job. She's got to go through training. It's probably 2 or 3 months before she's comfortable in the role. And then I want to get to know Dan, her husband, and then her kids, and learn a little more about her. And the more I know about her, the more I know what's important to her, so that I can help motivate her and help her achieve her goals so that we achieve our goals. What I found is we can really shortcut that as YOS coaches. If we really, and you experienced this recently, you shared a testimonial with me of an organization you went into, and they were having a lot of issues. And then you said, hey, let's take a pause and let's just learn about each other. And you really shortcut that from 3 years, which is usually about the time when I started feeling really comfortable with someone that I really knew them, to a half a day with a trained trainer. And do you find that you've been able to help shortcut that? And I don't know if you can share your testimonial with that and keep it private, but I really enjoyed getting that email from you telling me about what a difference you saw with that leadership team.
This is what I've loved about the YOS, the discovery from the start. It's like, I enjoyed the old school. Well, I enjoyed that process of getting to know people, but it is a lot of questions. It takes a long time, which is fine. But if we don't have that, we want to solve the problem. So yeah, absolutely. So I've loved that. Shortcutting that process. Yes, this team was incredible. They are looking to scale internationally. It's a business here in Australia, and they were having challenges with, communication. So incredible people, incredibly high-level contributors, very smart, intelligent, but yeah, and a couple of leaders were looking at resigning, before we went in. We had to air all of that stuff, create that safe space, ask some poignant questions, and it gets uncomfortable. So we took a pause, but we needed to go through that process. And then by the end of our time together, once we walk through the whys, like especially the why matrix, and you could see them looking there saying, oh, that's why you do that. It's not that you're trying to annoy me. It's that I've already solved the problem and you're wanting clarification. Okay, I get that now. So because they care so much about the business and they also care about their people, they're prepared to do what it takes to tweak their communication styles and understand more. And it resulted in, at the end of it, they were engaged, energized, and excited about the next steps. And they wanted to share it with the rest of the team. And then we've shared it with the rest of the business.
That is fantastic. And I'm so glad you shared that story, because I know there are leaders out there who are struggling with their teams. When leaders ask me, what are we going to get out of doing this? I tell them, look, if you've got somebody on your team that you're having trouble connecting with, this will help that. If you have someone on your team that you say, why do they do that all the time? Why? It's almost predictable, right? There's some things that annoy you that they're going to do. There's some things that you love that they're going to do every time. But we want to cut down the ones that annoy you, or you want to understand them better. And this is a perfect illustration of that. So thank you for sharing that, Danielle. Thank you for sending the email. I really appreciate you doing that, but I really appreciate you sharing that story with our coaches and our audience. So those leaders, let's go to, can you believe it? We're at our closing question. So I like to ask as Why Not Leadership, Lead Different is the name of our podcast, but my company is Why Not Leadership. And I always like to ask about your biggest why not moment, a time in your life when you said why not to an opportunity, a career change, a big decision, and you're so glad you did it. What was that moment for you?
Oh, okay. So there's been so many, but the pivotal one in my life was when we relocated to China, Beijing, back in 2012. And everything about life was perfect, apart from the fact that my children didn't see their father much. He was always traveling. So I said, why not? And we did it. And it was the worst experience of my life, yet the best. So I see it as very formative. And I look at because it was a total juxtaposition, like polar opposites. We went from this little beachside town in New South Wales in Australia, where we're beautiful weather, clean air, connected to our community, amazing people. Boys were happy in school and with their friends, but the only thing missing was their dad. So we relocated to a busy city of 21 million, which was nearly the whole population of Australia. The pollution was 27 times worse than what the World Health Organization said was healthy. There was contaminants in the food. There was always a scandal. There was cameras everywhere. It was suffocating, busy, all these sort of things. And my only crutch was exercise, going to the gym. I couldn't exercise outside. I had been a personal trainer. I'd had a personal training business, outdoor exercise up until then. And I couldn't even go outside and exercise. So I'd train people in the gyms and stuff. But that was my crutch. And then I hurt my back and I hit rock bottom. And then also my marriage breakdown. But here's the thing, I talk about it now, there's been a lot of that I've navigated through and some incredible people who've helped. But I look at my life now as BC, before China, and then AD after Dan, my ex-husband. And my life is just so much richer. I've met incredible people. I've learned so much about myself and built so much resilience, and opportunities have just opened up. So while you might say, why you think, oh, that wasn't such a great decision, Danielle, but actually it was.
Yeah, no, it does. Here's what makes it believable and what makes it good. You're okay with it. And I think that's such a great message. I think when we look at the things that happen to us, and this is such a coaching cliche, but things don't happen to us, they happen for us. And I think if you would look at how hard it was to live in Beijing and all that pollution, and not being an outdoor person, I know sometimes we talk when it's summer in Australia, you're coming off of a swim in the ocean. So I know how much you love the outdoors. It had to be incredibly tough to be stuck inside. And then you had, you were away, your kids were away from their dad. So there's all these challenges, but you've overcome them. And we can see, and I don't know if all of you that are watching, those of you that are listening, you can't see her face, but you just have this peace about everything that happened. I didn't see sadness come over you about the things that happened, because you've overcome it and you're a better person today. You're a better coach. You're a better parent, and you're a better ex-wife to Dan, I'm sure. There's a certain happiness that you have to you that shows us, hey, those things happen. We've got to experience them. And the best we can do is make the best of it and use that in the work that we do to make a better impact in the world. And you're certainly doing that.
Absolutely. Thanks, Dan. And yeah, we have a really great relationship, Dan and I, and we put, again, the most important thing at the center, and that's our children and their welfare. And we come second in that. So that's what has been, that's that congruency again, and what's most important at the center.
Amazing. That is a wonderful answer. That's a great story. And Danielle, what do you say we end the show on that note?
Why not?
Thank you so much, Danielle. Right on cue. Guys, it's been a pleasure to bring Danielle to you. I hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as I enjoyed having it with her. We're going to, you can see this on all your favorite podcast applications, and it's also available on YouTube if you want to watch the video. Please don't forget to hit the like button, give us a comment, let us know what you think, and please subscribe to our channel. The Lead Different podcast is here to help other leaders lead different. And we want to bring as many of these amazing leaders to you like Danielle. So don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next week on the Lead Different podcast. Thank you so much for being here, Danielle.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks, Dan.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different because great leaders change the world.